Silas Wanjohi had everything a man could dream of. Lavish homes, a fleet of cars, private jets, and a tech empire that made headlines across Africa. People spoke his name with reverence, but lately, the smiles around him had started to feel hollow. His sons were constantly fighting about shares in the company, his relatives only called when they needed money, and even his wife, Grace, had grown distant. He began to wonder, if he lost it all, would anyone still love him? Not the billionaire, not the provider, just him. One morning, Silas left for the airport. His family believed he was flying to Rwanda for a summit. Instead, he changed clothes in a dingy petrol station restroom, dumped his phone, and vanished into the heart of Nairobi, disguised as a broke old man named Mzee Juma. He rented a tin-walled shack in Mukuru kwa Njenga and took up work cleaning gutters, fixing broken bulbs, and doing odd jobs. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. His back ached, his fingers blistered, but his heart finally found some peace in the struggle. The people here didn't want his money, they valued his honesty, his kindness. No one bowed to him. No one pretended. From time to time, he'd sneak into the world he left behind. Dressed in rags, posing as a hawker, he watched his empire unravel. Brian, his eldest son, had taken over the company and turned it into a playground of power. Loyal staff were being sacked. Business ethics tossed aside. Michelle, his daughter, had dropped out of university and was now trending on TikTok for all the wrong reasons. His younger brother, Thomas, was caught trying to sell company shares to foreign investors. But nothing broke him more than what he saw at his own front gate. He approached the mansion posing as a casual worker looking for cleaning jobs. Grace opened the gate, wearing a silk robe and holding a glass of wine. She looked different, lighter, freer. Silas, hidden under that and a cap, asked if there was work. She barely looked at him. "No jobs here," she said flatly. Just as she turned to leave, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. A tall man stepped out. He kissed her on the cheek. "Dinner ready?" the man asked. Silas staggered back, heart pounding. The gate shut in his face. Later, he found out Grace had already moved some properties to her name and was planning to liquidate their main home. The woman he built everything with was preparing a life without him, even though he wasn't gone. The betrayal sliced deeper than any business loss ever had. One evening, while cleaning a drainage trench, Silas collapsed. Locals rushed him to a small clinic where he woke up to find a young nurse named Amina sitting beside him. She told him she recognized his face from an old motivational talk he once gave at a youth conference. "You're Silas Wanjohi, aren't you?" He didn't answer. "I won't tell anyone," she said softly. "But if you're hiding like this, you must be testing something. Or someone." She took care of him until he recovered. When he left the clinic, he didn't return to the trenches. It was raining the night he walked back to his old home. No disguise this time. Just a worn coat, muddy shoes, and a storm behind his eyes. He knocked at the gate, slow and steady. Grace opened, confused, staring at the old man. She didn't recognize him. "Can I help you?" she asked, already stepping back to close the gate. "Do you remember," he said, voice low, "the day we had nothing, and you promised you'd stay even if we had to sleep under a bridge?" She froze. Her eyes widened. She knew that voice. Her lips parted, but no words came. Only a single tear, quickly washed away by the rain. Silas stood there, broken but unshaken, staring into the eyes of a woman he once trusted with his whole life. And in that heavy silence, something shattered. The gate didn't close. Not yet. Grace took a slow step back, her hand still gripping the gate. Her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Silas stood under the rain, the light from the porch illuminating his face enough for her to see through the grime and time. Her eyes darted to the scar above his left eyebrow, the one he got in their first year of marriage, fixing a broken window for her. "Silas," she whispered, like saying his name might wake a ghost. He didn't answer. "I thought you were," she stammered, but stopped. She didn't finish the sentence. Her hands dropped from the gate, and the silence between them screamed louder than any fight they had ever had. She let him in. The warmth of the house hit him instantly, a cruel contrast to the life he'd just walked out of. The air smelled like rosemary and wine. A slow jazz tune played softly from hidden speakers. A fire crackled in the living room fireplace. It was still his home. But it didn't feel like it. She led him inside without another word. He noticed small things, new art on the walls, different furniture. None of the family photos remained in the hallway. His old study was now a minimalist yoga room. "Do you want tea?" she asked, her voice too calm. He shook his head. "You disappeared," she said, looking down. "Everyone thought you were dead." "And you moved on quickly," he replied. Grace closed her eyes. "You don't know what I went through." He turned to her, finally speaking with more weight. "You're right. I don't. But I do know what I saw. The man. The paperwork. The property transfers. You made peace with my death before confirming it." Grace looked up, meeting his gaze with eyes full of something between anger and grief. "You think this was easy for me? You think watching everything fall apart, your company being ripped apart by Brian, the media circling like vultures, was easy? You didn't seem to suffer," he said. "I did," she snapped. "But I also had to survive. You left without a word, Silas. I waited. I cried. I prayed. And when I finally accepted you weren't coming back, I did what I had to do." Silas sat down on the couch, water still dripping from his coat. "I was gone for 9 months, Grace. And in that time, my own wife erased me." Grace walked to the window, arms folded tightly. She stayed quiet for a long time. Then, almost too softly to hear, she said, "Maybe you erased yourself first." Silas looked at her. Her profile in the window's reflection hadn't changed. Still the woman he fell in love with. Still the woman he built empires with. But something had broken. Something deep. A sound interrupted the silence. Footsteps upstairs. Then a voice. "Grace. Is everything okay down there?" It was a man's voice. Silas didn't move. He just stared at her. Grace didn't answer. The footsteps grew louder. And the man came down the stairs, tall, handsome, dressed in nothing but boxers and a white t-shirt. He stopped when he saw Silas. They both stared at each other. No words. Just lightning crackling somewhere outside the house. Grace exhaled, eyes darting between the two men. "Silas, this is Eric." Eric, confused but composed, offered a weak nod. "Hey, man. I didn't know she was." "I mean, she said you were." Silas stood slowly. He walked past Eric without a word. Past the hallway, into what used to be his study. The yoga mats were rolled up in the corner. He knelt down and opened a loose floorboard behind the bookshelf, one he had hidden years ago. Inside it was a black folder. Still untouched. He pulled it out. Inside were signed agreements, backup shares, passwords, and the original title deed to the main company, something only he had access to. Grace appeared at the door. Her face was pale. "You kept it?" she asked. Silas closed the folder and looked at her. "Not everything gets erased." He walked past her again. This time, heading for the front door. Eric moved to the side, clearly shaken. Silas opened the door and paused. Rain still poured. He turned slightly, looking back at Grace one last time. This test isn't over. Then he stepped out into the storm again. Silas walked out into the rain, his footsteps slow but steady, the weight of the black folder pressed tightly under his arm. Behind him, the house that once felt like a palace now loomed like a stranger's fortress, cold, unfamiliar, echoing with memories that no longer belonged to him. Grace didn't follow. She just stood there at the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, the storm spilling into the hallway. Eric shifted awkwardly beside her, but she didn't move. Her eyes were locked on Silas until the rain swallowed him. Down the street, a cab pulled up. Amina stepped out, holding an umbrella. She'd come looking for him after he didn't return to the shelter. Her eyes widened when she saw his soaked clothes, the grim expression on his face, the black folder clutched in his hand. "You went back," she said softly. He nodded. "Are you okay?" Silas looked up at her, tired but calm. "I am now." They got into the cab. As it pulled away, Silas looked out the window one last time. The lights in the house were still on, but they no longer warmed him. The company was in chaos. His name had been tarnished. His family fractured. But the truth was clear now. He knew who was real. He knew who stayed when there was nothing. The rain slowed to a drizzle as the cab disappeared into the night. And for the first time in a long time, Silas Wanjohi, once a king, once a ghost, finally felt like a man again.